I'm Leah Jaffe, and you are here tonight to meet our candidates. So we're going to introduce you to them, and we have a lot of people looking at us from Zoom as well as you. And you need to be aware that everything we're doing here tonight is being recorded. So you all better behave yourselves. Nevertheless, I would like to introduce you to Kitty. There's me. We have Bruce Lasco. We have, excuse me. Okay. And we have Tom Tipton from. Now, the candidates. Sorry, I'm going to move out of the picture so you can see who they are. Excuse me. Say hi. Thank you. Right. We have Robert Hill. Sperling. Your phone, please. Because you are getting recorded.
And I would also say that because we do have the Zoom, we really do need to like the chat. Let the show, please. But other than that, if we could keep the Zoom as well, please.
Your sound is breaking up.
Phone situation, but when you ask your questions from the floor, we ask that you come up here to ask them so you can be seen. But if you don't want to be seen, talk real. And you can hear what the candidate says. Okay? Now, we're going to get to vote starting tomorrow. Okay. I'll do the one. Okay.
Yes.
And it closes, be aware, at 5 o'clock on the evening prior to 18th. So in other words, on the evening of November 17th, prior to the general membership meeting. So you've got that amount of time to vote online. Now, as you know, the PCA meeting is going to be held at Independence at 10 o'clock on Friday, November 18th. And any final nomination taken from the floor on the 18th on that day. So if anyone else wants to run or you want to nominate someone, you can on that same day. And paper ballots then would be submitted to the Board of Directors meeting, okay? On the election timing, the process, and online voting via Vote HOA Now, but you'll see more of this, provided in an email that you will all examine normally. Results will be reviewed and audited by the nominating committee and will be announced to the homeowners after the voting closes. So in other words, 1 week after November 17th at 5 o'clock. All right, so that way you'll know. Until then, okay? Anyway, so is your chance to hear from our candidates and to ask them any questions that you may have. Monica will acknowledge you, and we ask really that if you want to say anything, ask so the Zoom folk can see you and then hear the responses. And we're going to alternate our candidates' responses to the different questions we have as well. Okay, let's begin.
of my experience. Slowly started owning and buying.
We can't hear anything.
Thank you, Bob. Maybe if you want to stand up
I
and
think we
come a little closer, that might help.
got a microphone problem.
Take turns and not.
Now you do.
So within a couple months of moving here to Veranda, I volunteered for the board at Veranda. It was a board that only met once a year, didn't get a lot done. And we quickly, myself and Patricia Campbell, who's on the board, who's here, changed the structure. And with Mark Stanley, we have quarterly meetings. We've done special meetings. We're a very active board. We've done a lot of things this year and changed our management contract, changed a lot of things. And we have a lot more to do, but I enjoy being on that board. By January of last year, January 1st, this current year, I guess, I had applied for and been accepted and approved for the finance committee for PCA. I've enjoyed being on that committee. I've learned a ton about how things work here, how the committees work, budgets, the board. So it was a great experience for me. I had hands-on work experience with OA personnel, LNN, other committee members who are important people here. And I found it very rewarding. And I also brought a different element to it in that I'm a firm believer in change. I'm a firm believer in asking the hard questions and moving things along. And I think I did that. And I made a name for myself, good and bad, but we did do some changes and some positive things that I felt like I pushed. This is a very strange structure. We operate under OA control, 3 votes out of 5. So basically every decision made for homeowners here is controlled by 3 people. We do have 2 homeowners, but they don't, as board members, but they don't have the control. So every decision from every committee they do is controlled by OA. That's a very strange structure. I've never seen it. I've been on school boards, many other boards, but there was a reason for it, evidently, way back with bankruptcy and some other issues. So it's what we have, but it can't be what we have going forward. OA is saying they're going to transition out of the control in the next year and a half. They are saying, but it's based on sales too. And they can stay until the last lot is sold. And the way real estate is selling these days, I don't know that that's going to be a year and a half. So my point is, the reason I'm running is we have to start making those changes now because it may not happen for 2 to 3 more years. A lot of things going on that I'm sure we'll address in the text of this meeting as to how we can not be in control, but start to get more control. And that's what we have to do as a community. Running to make sure this transition happens. It can be stalled, as I said, for many reasons. You need a change agent to make this happen. I have a master's degree from the University of Penn in organizational dynamics. It's basically a psych degree for companies, a psych degree for groups. So mergers, acquisitions, takeovers, change in management, ownership, and structure, like what we're going to be going through, is what I would come in as a change agent and get everybody in as a psych, because everybody has different cultures, different frames they're coming from to get it to work. So I feel like I'm the right person. I have the right background. I've done this many times. I have the education to do it that I've used in bigger companies, certainly such as this, to bring things together. And that's why I hope you see that I'm the best candidate for this seat as we finish tonight. Thank you very much.
Leah. Everybody for coming. I really appreciate you coming out. My name is Merrill Cohen. Aaron and I originally bought a house in the Peninsula back in 2006. We moved here full-time in 2018. And I was elected to the board back in 2019. It was the first time homeowners were actually elected to the board. And I was privileged enough to be elected by homeowners to serve on the board. While on the board, I've worked very closely as a liaison with a number of the committees, including the finance, communications, technology, grounds, nature, security, and I'm very familiar with how this community works. Professionally, I was an attorney. I'm an attorney for about 40 years in the Washington, D.C. area. My specialty was bankruptcy. Although I was very involved with contractual contracts, transactional work, real estate. I have a lot of experience in those things, all of which really translates well in the HOA venue. Now, you may ask, why am I running again for the board? A lot of people ask me that. It's a lot of work, but I feel like I'm not finished. A lot of things that I've been involved in that we started, that we're working on to get to finish. And I think it's important that I stay involved, like to stay involved, to help represent all the homeowners in these activities. Among the important things we have going on, we have the reconstruction of the front entrance that we're working on. We have the front entrance. I'm very involved, and we're working on refurbishing the esplanade, all the landscaping in the esplanade and the common areas. We've been working on contractual relationships and how we properly manage. These are all very important projects that we're in the middle of, and I think I'd like to stay involved with that. And most importantly, we will, within the next couple of years, have a transition from a parent Ocean Atlantic Control Board to homeowners control board. And with my experience and my knowledge of what's going on here, I think it's important to help with that transition. Ask for your vote. I'll explain more about why I'm asking for your vote, and I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
I am Bob Hill. This may be a little confusing. Here with his wife Paula, and I'm here with my wife Paula. We'll try to keep it straight. I want to thank you all for being here, either here in person or on Zoom. It is so important.
If you wouldn't mind moving a little closer, Bob, I apologize.
Absolutely.
Our wire.
So again, thank you for being here, and those of you that are on Zoom as well. It's important to be involved in the community, and you all are involved, and you're part of the process. You're here to continue to make things work and grow. I think we all love this community, and so I appreciate you being here. I appreciate these guys being here as well, wanting to serve. And as far as backgrounds and talents, we all have a different background, but we all come with certain talents. I think the important thing is it's not so important who we elect, but what is the involvement from you and from us here. I'm not selected. I certainly want to serve and be available to whoever our board member is. So I'll give you just a little bit more background about myself. I have 5 kids and 14 grandchildren. And I've had a company for the last 41 years, property management, construction, maintenance, and brokerage. And we do real estate development. And we take an idea and move it forward. And then we hunt for the people that it takes to make things happen, the architects, the engineers, the suppliers, the subcontractors, and bring them all together make a successful project. I think that's our purpose here, is to bring the talents of not only these guys, but all of you. This is a wonderful community with a lot of really successful people. So we have the ability, if we can pull on those talents, to make this and continue to make it a great community going forward. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Harris Sperling. My wife, Linda, and I, and our dog, Bertie, are from Los Angeles, California. I'm often asked, why did you come to Delaware? And my response is Los Angeles, California. So we bought property here in the peninsula, which we love. And we're going back to California tomorrow morning and sell our house and come back here to reside full time. I'm very excited about doing it. Just a little bit about me and my career. I graduated from the Naval Academy in Annapolis, had a very successful naval career, retired as a captain in the Navy, which for those of you who don't know, a bird colonel in the Army, or had command of 4 combatant ships while serving in the Navy. I worked for the Maritime Administration. I went to the Senior War College, Stephen Luce Award for community service and a Scholastic Award. Navy, or the last part of the Navy, I had about 17 years at sea, and I was going to go back to sea as either a squadron commander or I had enough of sea duty after 17 years and thought time to get out, and I retired. Then I went to work for the Northrop Corporation, which is an aerospace company. And after a couple of years there, I was asked to serve in the CEO's office or chairman of the board's office, which I did, and ended up working for 4 CEOs and chairman of the boards as their assistant or chief of staff. And we went from a $5 billion in sales company to a $30 billion sales company when I left. It was quite, as you can imagine, quite an exciting period for me and a lot of learning. From there, I went into an organization called Executive Services Corps. It's a nonprofit organization, and they help other nonprofits. They take for-profit people, they train us in nonprofit work, and we help in board development, fund development, strategic planning, and leadership coaching. And that's what I've concentrated on. I've helped over 20 some odd nonprofits. Each assignment is about a year in duration. And I've been chairman of the board of the Century City Chamber of Commerce, which is one of the big ones in Los Angeles. I also was the president, the first president of the USA Dance Los Angeles County in ballroom dancing. And in fact, learned to ballroom dance, and my professional instructor got me to compete, and I competed in the senior level and actually won a few. I don't know if any other of the prospective candidates can say they can do the rumba, but I can. And again, along the way, I've been involved with HOAs. And in Los Angeles, I've been the president of our HOA for the last 11 years. We live in a gated community like here. 5 families. I think I've seen it all. I don't know if I have, but after 11 years, I've seen quite a bit. So what I do bring, would bring to this board is experience. I understand boards. I understand how they work. I understand their priorities. And I understand people's priorities. And I think I've been successful in lid on, certainly in the LA. So I understand about maintaining budgets, keeping the appearance of the area outstanding, services, amenities, and also listening to people and listening and being respectful and following out their wishes. So I thank you all for listening to me and hope to have you both. Thank you.
We'll start with questions from the audience first. Are there any people that have any questions for a specific candidate?
Graham?
But right in front here, and I would ask everybody to mind our wire here. If anybody feels uncomfortable, I can always repeat the question. If anybody
Okay,
feels
my question is
uncomfortable.
to Merrill. You mentioned the front entrance and I've heard some rumors that we're looking at changing the front entrance. I don't understand that. It's kind of the hallmark. Why we would do that.
That was Kim Home. Thank you, Kim. That's a very good question. In fact, we met about this today. So for those of you who don't know, they're developing the last community neighborhood in the Stillwater community, which is on the right-hand side when you come in. Right now, there's a service construction entrance that's along Trinity Road. And that construction entrance is always intended to be a temporary entrance. Will be closed down once that neighborhood is completed because the trucks are driving through what is that neighborhood. So we're going to lose that second entrance. Led by some people from the grounds committee and the security committee have been looking at alternatives to the existing service entrance for the last several years. We've engaged in engineering studies. We look at a lot of alternatives, and we've narrowed down to a particular place where we're hoping to recommend to the community where we can put a second service entrance, which would allow the vehicles that come in. I don't know if anyone goes out there in the morning, but we have, what do we have, Jeff? 150 to 175 trucks that are literally lined up to come in. I prefer, and most of us prefer, not to have them having to go through this existing front entrance. If they do, we'll have to completely reconfigure that front entrance to accommodate the truck. We have been looking very hard, working very hard to come up with some alternatives, which I think we have, which will allow for a second entrance for those service vehicles and allow us to maintain the aesthetic beauty of the current front entrance. The plan is we have a group of homeowners from various committees, including security, finance, grounds, and communications, to work with the engineering firm to come up with plans. The intention is that once we have resolved, there are a number of issues, there are a number of questions that we're working our way through. Once we have a solution, we're going to recommend, this group will recommend it to the board. The board will take it out to a vote to the community. So you will understand the whole history of how we got to where we are, that we needed, that we're asking to request a second entrance, and how it's going to be paid for. That's sort of the history of the second of the construction entrance. That's why we have to look at it. If we don't do anything, then we'll be forced to basically reconfigure the current front entrance to accommodate all these trucks and service vehicles that come in. So the hope is that we can get approval from the community. And again, we're going to come to you all for a vote with all transparency of all the information that we have, how we arrived at what we're suggesting, how it's going to be paid for, and what it's going to look like. The plan is to get that out as soon as we have a decision. The reason why we haven't been able to come up with, to provide information beforehand is because it's a moving target. And it makes no sense to sort of to tell you things that ends up changing and that we don't know yet. So once we have some definitive options to present to the community, we will do that. We will lay it all out and we'll ask for a vote. The other thing I will tell you, there won't be under any scenario a special assessment to pay for it. So we have the ability, the funds available to pay for that. And the hope is that we maintain our current front entrance, which is a keystone to our community. that's one of the projects that I want to remain. I've been working on this for several years now to get it to the fruition. I'm happy to answer other questions about it later on. Yes.
What's the time frame for this decision making?
Well, we're hoping to do that before, probably by January. Stillwater neighborhood is already now being developed. We're told that we may lose the current front service entrance probably by the third quarter of next year. We want to get this approved so we can go through the process to get it completed before we lose that entrance. But again, you know, trying to tie down timeframes from Ocean Atlantic as to how long it's going to take, when it's going to close down, it's hard to guess. Permitting process, which depends on the county. A lot of moving parts in this. We have to get approval from Delaware Department of Transportation. That's a big issue. We got to get county permits. We've got moving gas lines. So we're having to deal with a lot of utilities, the government, county, get all the approvals, not to mention contractors, engineers, and everything to get it all set up. So the hope is that we'll close to having something to present to the community. A couple of people who were involved are here tonight. Transparency. We'll hopefully probably have a town hall or something where we can show you the plans, how we got there, what we're suggesting, and then you all decide.
Lori Faust had a follow-up as well regarding this. Wasn't this planned for in the original documents in community planning?
Actually, no. So my understanding is, and the original documents, there was no second entrance. There was only one entrance, which is the current entrance. The service entrance, construction entrance that we have now was always on in the original plans, a temporary entrance. And in fact, it was Ocean Atlantic's position is because it wasn't in the original plans, that we don't have to have a second entrance, and all that we should just do is modify the existing front end. Myself and a number of the other homeowners vehemently objected to that and said, we don't want to lose the centerpiece of our community when you come in to have an alternative second entrance. And that's why we're working very hard. Homeowners have been working very hard to get a second entrance approved. Any other questions about that?
Yeah.
Does somebody have?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Somebody else had a question, I thought? No?
Any other response?
Okay.
So that gatehouse, the entrance is a big issue, a big cost. It's going to be anywhere from 200,000 to $1 million. Now, Merrill has been working on this for a number of years. He's a PCA board member. What he didn't mention is some of us in the finance committee and other committees have pushed OA to help pay for this. We are like, why are we paying for this? Your trucks come through, your construction trucks, your delivery trucks, they use that. Why are we supposed to foot the bill? We pushed, I've been on the board, finance committee, and pushed. They won't give us an answer. They stall. We're still looking at things, but they look at you like, why even ask? Security at that gatehouse costs $400,000. They don't pay for security here. We secure the facilities for them. So these are the types of things that I'm saying has to change. Why are homeowners footing the bill for that new gatehouse? Why are homeowners paying for security and OA is not? They've had it their way for a long time. It was 200 homes. We're almost 1,100 now, going on 13. They have, and they're benefiting from these sales. They have to start paying for things. So that's not what he brought up. That's what I'm bringing up is the difference in a PCA board member. And I like him. I've worked with Merrill on other things. It's just, it's a different look now than I think from 3 years ago when he came on the board. He did a great job, but it's different. We have to push because OA just has always had it their way and approve things 3-2, push it down, we pay. That's the way this is going on that $1 new entrance. We are going to have to foot the bill unless we rise up and say we're not doing it anymore.
Good. Good for you. Hi, my name is Tom Schultz, been a resident here full-time for 10 years. Been pretty active, but question for all four of you, and I want to follow up, Bob, thank you, that was a nice segue. Not only does OA benefit, and I understand their position, because I've had it, but we have something separate. I want to ask each one of you if you can address this. The clubhouse has activity of truck traffic and visitors constantly. They're separate legal entities. How will you address having them participate in the cost sharing of any secondary gate? Because they will be utilizing it also. So I'm going to ask each one of you to answer that.
Thank you. Good question.
Would say, who benefits? Comes to the vendors, is it to their benefit? Are we asking them to come in? Clubhouses, who is the benefactor service? And I think that certainly is a predominant. So, certainly one of the things. That we'll talk about.
Up with the best solution that's going to work. Once we determine what that solution is, then there is a matter of and then thirdly, I think that's the time to all this gets paid for. Don't think that we're going to get the vendors.
Can the candidates all move up close to the microphone? We cannot hear anything you're saying.
Microphone closer to the candidates. Again, we appreciate everybody's patience this evening. There you go, guys. No whispering. Yeah, I'll set that. I'll set that up. Get you guys squared back away.
Great, so everybody's looking.
No pressure. Apologize.
We have to all sit close now.
Thank all of you, appreciate it. We probably are not gonna be able to get the four shot in
You want
here
a separate table for the camera?
unless we get another.
Can we just stand up when we answer?
All right,
There it is.
we will, we will.
After one of us.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
okay,
true,
I'm
too.
happy to stay in-
There you
As
go.
long as I get my junk out of your way, you'll be fine. Again. We'll monitor chat.
Are there any other questions on this or from the audience?
Let's
Yeah,
answer.
well,
Did anybody else
the rest have to
respond?
We're
answer.
still
I'm
answering.
sorry.
Log in here so that I can monitor chat. So there are some questions there that I'll pull up.
So I'll just follow up on what I was saying, that it is an engineering issue. It's something that we have to resolve. It is, in the long run, it's a benefit to the community. I'm not interested in changing the entrance for aesthetic purposes, but it may be necessary to make this all work, that we do have to make some changes to our entrance. The question, I think, is ultimately who pays for this, but we have to do our homework before we get to that point and know what the solution is and what the cost is. Then we can have the discussion on how this gets paid for.
First, I want to answer Tom's question, which is, how do you make the club pay for that? First of all, for those of you who don't know, the club, just like you and I, pays dues to the PCA. The club actually pays the equivalent of, what's it, 10 lots? How many? 30 lots. So they are dues paying members of this association. So while they get the benefit of a lot of the services we provide, they are paying for that, just like you and I get the benefit of the services that the PCA provide, and we pay dues. So I don't know how you could legally enforce to charge them extra money because they're getting a delivery of a truck when they're already paying. And second, the next thing I just want to say, Bob, I agree 100% Ocean and Atlantic should pay for this. They should pay for a lot of things. Unfortunately, we just can't push them and make them pay. We have to have a legal basis for pay them. In the documents, there's no requirement that there be a second entrance. If we, the homeowners, want a second entrance, we're going to have to pay for that. And that doesn't mean that we don't ask them, we don't request them, but I've studied the documents. I don't know of any legal basis by which we can force them to do it. And simply standing there and telling them that they have to pay is not going to make them pay. If anyone, and I know that I've talked to a number of lawyers, if you can tell me a theory, a legal theory, which we can do that, we can present that. And I've done that before with other things that we've gotten from them. I'm not going to just simply tell them that they have to pay because I want them to pay. I have to have a legal basis. Now, having said that, I have talked to them about it and we are discussing it, and I'm hoping that they're going to make some contribution. But if they do that, I can't force them to. We can't legally do it. I don't want to be in the position where we have to sue them. We've had litigation here in this community. It gets expensive, time consuming, and ultimately you don't win. So I appreciate the fact that we want someone else to pay for what we want. But the reality is that unless we can come up with a legal basis for making them pay, we're going to have to come up with some creative ways, which we're doing, which we have, which will be very minimal impact on the homeowner. So that's how I would respond to those questions.
Well, as I said, I'm a CPA. So they have 30 lots out of 1,100, less than 3% they're paying towards these costs. So collectively, we're paying 98.5%. They're paying 2.5%, but we're supposed to feel like they're contributing. Okay, there is bases and there is ways to allocate these things. This is what accountants do. We presented problems, we come up with solutions. A way to look at this is not just because they have 30 lots, but a basis of usage, a basis of tonnage of the types of trucks coming through, how many trucks versus cars, how much land they consume versus us that requires maintenance trucks. So there's prorated allocation bases that have been used as precedent in these types of situations. So I agree, we don't want to sue to do it, but we do want to present something that's going to be hard for them to say to all our faces, that's not fair, we're not doing that. Compared to, there's some basis to what you're saying. Maybe we don't agree with the total calculation, but we see the point. We're not just going to try to get away with 3% like we do now. We should look at this differently. And it's important because remember, in the next 2 years, they're going to pull out. So documents are being drawn up now for them to pull out and what is going to happen after. So we have to have this in there that as these things come up going forward, just because they weren't in these documents 15 years ago, they have to be included now, because when they have no reason, they've sold all their homes, they don't have to listen to us anymore on their dues and everything else. They're a separate entity. They don't have to. So we have to make sure in this transition period, and I've done this before, that you change the things so the minority control, which is us, who's going to become the majority control after the change, has control of a lot of things and has a basis within documents to address things down the road 10 years from now. So just because it's that way now, if we don't work and fight to change it in the next 2 years, it's gonna stay that way. That's not right. That's not the way it should be. That's not a true partnership. They're like our partner. Okay, we are the homeowners. They have the amenities. We're partners. This is not a true partnership. And if we don't change those documents going forward, this is our only chance to change it.
On any other topics, any other?
There's a question.
There's a question.
Yes,
Right.
okay.
Question is this, I've only lived 11 here. And people we had that you get from OA and you make, you're representing first. How are you going to represent a 3-2 vote? That we need, because I'm going to live here a short time. How are you going to stand up for us? And how you?
I'm just gonna repeat that. Please make sure I summarize this right. The question is, how will our two homeowners stand up
For the 1,000 homeowners.
for the 1,000
in
homeowners?
this community against a 3-2 vote, and personal information of 3 votes and why.
So I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you. That was, it's a very good question. But it's a question that does not have an easy answer. When you're outvoted 3-2, you can argue all day long and all night long. And unless you have a compelling argument that, and you get some agreement from the other side, you're going to be outvoted every time. So I think that it's more of a negotiation to try to get OA to work together to solve common problems. But it's not something that having 2 votes versus 3, that you can force your will. I think that it's important to have good communication with the community as to how this is going. But our hands are tied to a certain extent until we get to the point where we have full representation on the board.
Well, it is a difficult thing for board members that people elect. There's a certain amount of faith and trust that that board member will represent the people the best way he or she can possibly do. I think from what I've seen so far, this is a very open board. The kinds of things that this board does as far as having open communications with the community is terrific. In fact, there's some things I can learn from my board. But I think ultimately it's you place trust in your board member to do his or her job the best way that they can do. And that's with listening to the community and understanding what the community wants. But ultimately, when that decision has to be made, the board member is going to make it.
That it's an open situation with the board. Board meetings, the PCA board meetings are closed meetings. We're not, even in committees, given detail as to the decisions. We're asked for input. And a lot of times we have more input because of our backgrounds that we could offer on a decision, but we're told, no, just count the beans, go home. We don't need your opinion. Then we get the decision and we're like, that wasn't right. So what I would say we need open boards. We have Hub, we can post things now, the finance committee, we're posting quarterly statements, minutes, everybody is except the board. So the board has to open up, we need more transparency. We don't have it, they don't want to do it, there's usually reasons for it, not all bad, some are confidential type issues that can be edited, but we need a more open, transparent board. Was put on the finance committee. I said something in one of the first meetings about homeowners, and I was told, you're on the committee to serve the board. I was on the committee to serve the homeowners. And no, because the board makes a decision, we give them the information, they make the decision for the homeowners. We are just to serve them for what they need to make decisions. And I found that hard, that we have 1,000 homeowners, 2,000 people, 1,000 homes. 3 people are making the decision for all things, for them and us, and there's a definite conflict. But we need transparency. We don't have it. We have to fight to get it. It's not a board fight, it's not a lawsuit. It's a situation we have to sit down, enough homeowners have to sit. Committees. We have tremendous talent on committees. We have some very strong voices, credible, that the board listens to. We have to rise up, we have to sit with them, and we have to say, we need transparency. OA, they increase their fees when they want, how they want, they have private, they say we're private, we can't look at their books. Well, that's true, but we can look at projects, like what does this cost? How are we paying for the pool? We know they're paying for it, by law they have to, they can't charge us for the pool until it's built. Then it's going to be increase in assessment. That plan's been laid out. So last year was 10%, this year 15, 20. What's the plan? There's no transparency with the board or OA who controls the board. We need with them with their numbers. They sat in our meeting and saw our increase we just passed. I asked, what's your increase going to be this year? We're not talking about that. I said, well, to sit and see our numbers and see what we're doing, then they go decide. That's not true. That's partnership. We need transparency and balance. That's how we do it.
Now,
Appreciate what you all said. I understand. First, I want to try to answer Mike's question rather than all these different tangential issues. In the 3+ years I've been on the board, there has never been a 3-2 vote. Never. Mike, you're on the board. You ever call a 3-2 vote when we were outvoted on something? So there's a misconception in that they're against us. That is not the case. My feeling and the board members, Mike Bernhardt and Ian Hume, we work consensually. We work to develop a consensus among the board members. Every one of our decisions are made in agreement. There's negotiation, there's compromise, there's discussion. The way things generally work is we have, if you all don't know about this, we have about 7 or 8 committees. Most of the things that get presented come through the committees. We ask the committees to work on something, the committees come up with something. So most of the decisions that we've made are approving or modifying or changing things that the homeowners have come up to through the committees. There have been things that the Ocean Atlantic has said, we don't agree with this, but if this is what the homeowners want, we'll go along with it. So we've had things where they've given their input. They said they may not agree 100%, but if this is what the homeowners want, this is what they'll vote for it. So to say that there's always this conflict is just not true. And I also want to talk a little bit, very briefly, the issue of Ocean Atlantic opening up their books and showing their books and how the pool. This is a PCA, Peninsula Community Association vote. We have nothing to do with the club, the pool. There's an advisory board. You can go to them. They are a private entity. Whether they choose to open their books or not is a question between them and the members of the club. We have no involvement in those issues. I will say that, and you can ask people who are on the committees who work with us. I believe we are very open. We have quarterly meetings where we lay out everything that we've done. We post minutes on the hub. The committee minutes are posted. Anyone asks a question to me, I'll tell them exactly what's going on, subject to whatever confidentiality. And yes, some of our discussions are closed. We've all worked before. You can't have decisions being debated, in public on everything. Some of it's confidential, some of it's personal. I feel like we are very open. We are transparent. We work consensually. We work together. Part of what I try to do is help to develop that consensus and help to bring people together so that we can make a decision that benefits all the homeowners. And that's what I try to do. And I think we've been fairly successful with the committee structure we have and with the board we have in doing that.
To all, what will you, this comes from Jenny Gibson, to all, what will you do specifically to ensure that the voices of homeowners are heard on major issues before decisions are made? We have almost 1,500 homeowners here now, so what worked in the past isn't working now. Be specific regarding your approach.
All right, well, I'll start with Meryl on that one. Gentlemen, this one's asking for specific things.
So I do is I try to talk to as many people as possible to get your opinions and to find out what you think. You can find me almost everywhere in the community. So I try to, to get people's opinions, I reach out. I've always promoted that there's been any major decision that affects the community, that we put it out to a vote. We did the natural gas vote. We're going to do the front entrance vote. We've had other things where we, I believe when we made some changes to the trash pickup, we put it out for votes. We can't put every little thing out to a vote because quite frankly, most of the things that we do are fairly mundane. The other thing I would point out is with the committee structure that we have, homeowners are already getting access to or having representation so that these decisions aren't made just unilaterally by the board members. We're getting input from the various committees, particularly as to issues that those committees have knowledge of. We have very knowledgeable and experienced people, and we rely on them for their help. So to answer Ginny's question on any major decision, I promote and do promote that we do put it out to a vote. And on all decisions, we try to get input from the committees, but ultimately, we, the board, are responsible, not the committees. We're the ones that are being elected by you, the homeowners. We're the ones that are accountable to you, not the committee members, not other people who are out there in the community. We're the ones who are responsible to you. So ultimately, it's our decision, right or wrong. Hopefully, we make them all right. Hopefully, we get all the information we can, so as we can make the best decisions possible. And I think we've done that in the past.
I think Merrill described it perfectly. I'm not sure that I can add too much more to that, but you can't have all the members of the community totally involved and giving their opinion on every issue. Like Merrill said, if it's a major issue that involves lots of dollars or other things that affect the community, yes, but on a regular basis, you just can't have total community involvement in every decision that comes before the board.
I think it's difficult for this board, small board, to represent 1,100 going on 1,300 families. Let me just very quickly tell you, in California, we have actually 3 boards, 300 families. I have the Canyon Board, which is about 140 people. There's another board, and then there's a master board. That handles local kinds of issues, but the master board also. So the master board has certain kinds of overall types of issues, and the Canyon and the custom boards have localized issues. One of the things that I thought about is possibly having additional boards, having smaller boards that are local, that handle local kinds of issues that address the particular area. And then you have a master group that handles the bigger stuff. But those smaller boards have inputs to the master board. And so in that process, you have a better representation of people. How does this board handle upwards of 1,300 families? Possible to do.
Mr. Baca.
Specifically, I would say what's really nice that's happening, there's a movement in in the peninsula, where the communities have their own boards now. Like Veranda has a board. We have 3 committees within our board. A lot of the associations have grown up now and they have their own board. So I would reach out to those boards, because that Veranda, we always felt like we were that little stepchild nobody paid attention to. Grounds committee doesn't pay attention to. We got terrible common areas, dirt, and because we have no representation on the grounds committee. So I would reach out to these individual committees for the communities. I would reach out to, there's a civic association called One Peninsula that represents all, has membership from all the different groups, communities, that also has a voice, and they talk about things as a group. I would also sure that there's people, every community, Veranda, they on our committees, because certain committees are dominated by certain communities, and other committees are not at that table when things are discussed and divvied up or decided on or recommended to the board. Here's what we recommend, but meanwhile, got nothing. And they say, oh, okay, but next year's budget, we'll talk to you. That's a whole nother year. So I would reach out to the communities, committees. I would reach out to Civic Association, 1P. I would make sure that if there's an opening on it, you can't have 13 people in every committee, or 10, but you shouldn't have 3 from one when other ones are not represented at all. That's how I would try to get more information from people.
Any other questions from the audience? Any more from our Zoom?
I can field another.
Oh, I see him, that young lady in the red.
And before I ask my question, I just want to comment on this theme of power. Coordinating or whatever it's called, because of the 3-2 difference on the board. And I just don't buy that, because the elected and the current board members, you're representing Atlantic has. I think elected is just figure out how to strategize effectively to include the constituents, effectively represent them, and not just assume self-defeating. And also, Atlantic will make decisions based on the knowledge that we. So that's my commentary. My question is about the security. I'd like each of you to address how concerned you are with security, particularly in light of what happened in September, and how you're going to address that going forward, and anything on that issue.
Los Angeles, security is probably the #1 issue that our boards face. And threats to, because we're a high-end community, we've had threats from outside. And so again, security has been an issue. I think one of the things that I enjoy here very much is dwelling live, where you've got to call in, you've got to go online to let someone in. The security here is good, but like any place, you can enhance security, you can enhance the perimeter, you can have studies made of how to enhance security, which we did in Los Angeles. We've hired a number of folks who've come in and given us some great ideas in the perimeter defense and individual instructions for people to be more careful, etc. The dwelling live is excellent here. I think it's terrific. I've had vendors come and I've had to get on dwelling live to let them in. But anyway, so security would be one of my primary focus here, certainly.
Mr. Hill.
Security is a real issue today, not only here, but cities and throughout the country. I wish I had an answer how to make it more secure. I think that are relatively secure. I don't think that you can adopt a program that guarantees security. There's always ways around whatever you do. I think that we're doing a fairly good job with what we do right now, but there are always people out there that will have some intention that will go around whatever security issues that we have. I don't know enough about the number of issues in the community. I know of a few. To me, they're relatively minor, but it is an issue, and we want to make sure that our community is safe.
First of all, I take the security of the community very seriously. I've been the liaison of the security committee. I've worked with them very closely. Those of you who don't know, our security committee consists of a number of former and retired and current law enforcement professionals. In fact, we have a current member of the Delaware State Police. We have a number of people here who are very, very talented, very, very experienced. In addition, there are a number of other very experienced and talented former law enforcement professionals in the community. I regularly speak to them, both on the committee and those in the community that I know of, that I know what can we do on how can we enhance our security? What could we or should we have done in this situation? I'm very involved. I think it's very important. Now, what they tell me, and I rely on them. I'm not going to sit there and pretend like I'm an expert on security. I'm not. But I know who is. I know how to ask them the right questions. And what they'll tell me is, one, despite the fact that all around us there's a lot of criminal activity, we are a very safe community. The number of incidences that I am aware of in the 15 plus years I've been involved in are less than 10 that have happened in the community. As far as I know, there have been no home invasions. There have been no personal attacks on anyone. The incidences that we've had have been, as Mr. Hill said, have been fairly minor. That doesn't mean we're not constantly trying to enhance our security. We've started, we have the dwelling live, and we upgraded that. I was involved in that system. We work closely with our security guards. We have instituting some new cameras. We have cameras. We're putting some more cameras in, looking at different kinds of cameras to enhance our security. But I'm not going to lie to you and tell you we'll ever be 100% safe. We can't be. Nobody can be, no matter where you are. As safe as you can be in this area, in this community. And I'm very confident in the people that we have who can advise us and help us and get us even better.
Well, I don't agree. A minor incident, I would not call September 14th. We had an armed intruder come into veranda and approach our homeowner, one of our homeowners, in the middle of veranda for a ride home or to use their charger in their house. Now, there was helicopters everybody saw. We had SWAT team come through. We had state police with AK-47s running through the trails. So I don't consider that minor that somebody was approached a month ago. So we're not safe. We thought we were. And a lot of my neighbors in Veranda who moved here were shocked. Their illusion of this place was shattered because that person was there, and they have helicopters over their house with strobe lights going through the woods in the back of their homes. So I don't think we're secure. We're more secure than, say, Potnets or somebody else, but we're not a secure community that these builders and everybody else markets. So what's the solution? The solution is we have to be more robust than today. They planted about 20 trees about this wide, 2 feet apart as a barrier to go to the other peninsula lake. That's going to take. And they only did half because they ran out. They said that was the budget. We have some cameras going up, some motion lights. We created our own security committee in Veranda because we could not count on the PCA security committee. Notified that there was a person running through Veranda. We found out cops. We're trying to notify them to notify everybody else. 2 hours go by between when the board knew about it and they sent out that email to the community that there's a police presence. Never said there's an armed intruder. It could be a police presence, a domestic squabble. You don't know. That was the communication until 11 in the morning the next day when we pushed them. What's going on? The cops are still here. Did they find the cop? So we instituted our own call system and our own monitor system because we can't rely. What else can be done? We have 7 builders here currently building homes. They market the safety and security of this gated community. If it costs $210,000 to get a fence, to get the robust security we need, then you charge them 30 grand each, whatever the number is. But we're trying to do it once again. We're told this is a homeowner's problem. We have to pay for it, and we just don't have that kind of money. OA didn't kick in, and they're one of the builders. So why don't, because nobody asked, so it doesn't happen. You have to ask, you have to push, you have to come up with a plan that's reasonable. We're not asking 2 of them to do it. We're saying share it. You're marketing it, you're selling homes based on it, make it real. Market the hell out of it and sell quicker because it's a true secure environment. We don't have that. We're not even close. It's okay, but it's been shattered. If you live in Conservancy and Veranda, it's been shattered. That person is running through there.
Leah, I just need to correct something I said, and I apologize. I did not mean to suggest or say that the incident was a minor incident. It wasn't a minor incident. We took it very seriously. And I just want to correct that if I gave that perception.
And I wanted to also say that in no way was sliding the expertise and knowledge of the security committee, who have been excellent. They came up with recommendations 3 years ago, came up with a very work that would have cost thousands upon thousands. It took 2.5 years to get back by the Peninsula Conservancy Board. That happened in May. We have 20 to 50 that covered just a minor area. They're this big. There has to be more that has to happen. Is that the board has to. They can't just humor them. They can't just waste their time. They have to then enact on the recommendation. They have great knowledge, but
Sure. I'm from Robin Mitchell. Developer to retain control until it's time to turn over the development. Since that time is near, what type of things do each of you think we need in place to promote a smooth transition?
A smooth transition. Well, certainly, when that time comes and we elect more board members from our homeowners,
Right.
there needs to be a period of time where we compare notes with the existing board and the representatives of the developers. I think that it's important that all the cards get put on the table, that we have a full understanding of where they're coming from and everything that they've worked towards up to this point. But there needs to be a time when you come together and exchange their information and with new people coming on, that they get up to speed. I think that's how you make the transition as smooth as possible. It's a lot of communication between the old board and new board members coming in.
Mr. Bob?
Well, there's a number of things. As I said, I've done this before. You need consensus between who's leaving and who's taking over. In order to do that, you have to have documents. And there's transitional documents that says who's going to pay for what, how are we going to negotiate down the road. So it's not just at this point in transition, it's thinking of the things that could happen 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, another bankruptcy. You have to spot the issues, have the documents. You can't think of everything, but you address everything you think could happen and try to be ready for it. And I've been on boards before, I've audited boards before, and whenever a declarant leaves, I haven't seen it not happen yet, the cost to the homeowners goes up because they do pay for certain things, not, let's say it's the 30 lots. But there's other things that there may be that they're subsidizing with a worker that's helping with the fence or something. But costs will go up. We need to know those costs. We need to know if the costs are going to go down. There's things we're paying for now we shouldn't pay for anymore. They should start paying for, like the gate and security, things like that. There's things that we have to start. They can't show up to work without using our facilities. They have to come through the gate, use our roads. They should pay for the pavement of those roads. We can't use their facilities unless we pay. But they can use ours without paying. That's not right. These are the things you sit down and you talk about and you say, okay, you had it this way for a number of years and there's reasons, but we don't care anymore. We're not historians. We're out going forward and we need different. And you start now, it can take 2 years. And to the board's credit, they've started a transition type committee of homeowners, lawyers, accountants, finance people are starting that process of sitting down. And it could take 2 years. They could be here. As I said, they don't have to leave until the last house is sold, and they may not want to. They don't have to. So we have to push these documents. We have to push the issues to be included so they're codified and dealt with later and be ready. It's a lot of work. That's a lot of teamwork. As a board member, I've done it before, and I look forward to doing it again for all of you.
I think I would just pair it with goes down the communication where first you have right questions. And the other side has to give you the correct answers. And I think part of that codify that. And so over time you build up a repository of the kinds of things that you need to ask. And sides is asking the right question.
Harold?
Thank you. It's a very good question. And I would answer by saying, first of all, we are in very good shape for this transition. We have a number of homeowners who have been involved representing the community, both on the board and the committees, who are very familiar with our documents, our procedures, our vendors, and all the management of the community. So this transition, and what happens when we have a transition, all we do is we go from a majority declarant board to majority homeowner board. Nothing else changes. And we're well positioned with a number of people who can step right in and help with that process. One of the things we're doing, and this was quite frankly at Ocean Atlantic's suggestion, is to take a look at our declaration, our governing documents, and to see what makes sense to change when we transition. Let's look at it now. What would the homeowners like to see? Why would we do that now? Because it's much easier for Ocean Atlantic to change the documents, because as long as they're the declarant, they're the ones that would actually do that. And we have a group who are going through them piecemeal, and we'll make some suggestions, but ultimately it's up to Ocean Atlantic to decide what they want to change. We can change the documents after we take over, but it requires, it's a much more complicated and difficult procedure. So we are well situated for a transition. It'll be very smooth. Most people won't even know that it happened. And I'm very confident in the people we have, both on the finance committee, the communications committee, the grounds committee, all these, the technology committee that can help with and ensure that this transition is smooth and painless.
No, I have a. Just find out.
Can I follow on with my question?
That?
I'd like to follow on with that question. This is Robin Mitchell. I hear what you're saying, and I've heard what the board is saying. I will tell you, I was the president of HOA with a transition, much smaller community. There is nothing simple and easy with a transition. The matter of turning over books in itself is major. The things that the current company, OA, and the homeowners are doing is completely different. A transition, you've got the budget, you need attorneys, and I heard that some of this stuff is already set up. That is something that we should be getting into great detail right now, not when the time comes. I've been through this, and I'm telling you, we only had 200 and some houses. This is not easy. What's going on with OA right now, I know that a lot of us, there's a lot of talk about OA should do this and OA should do that. This is set up like a typical new development. So OA is in control, and I agree with that. Yes, we do need to talk with them and work with them, but we're not going to be able to make them do anything. But we do need to start working with them in great detail about our transition.
So Robin, if I can answer that, we've been doing that for the last several years. So we already have a finance committee that works directly and develops the budget. We have a legal and bylaws committee that works directly with all of our contracts. So we know as homeowners on these committees and on the board what the contracts are, what the finances are. We have a management company in place. There are no secret books because there's separate books of the PCA that Ocean Atlantic has. We have between the board, between the full board and the finance committee that you serve on, Bob, and the other committees, they have all this information. So I think that this transition, now I understand that a lot of communities have problems with transition. But I don't think we're going to be one of them.
Robin, we also
Thank you.
transition committee and give you.
Transition committee, and that was my question
Oh.
to Merrill as a current board member. Who is on that transition committee? And because all the committees are now listed on the hub, but the transition committee is not.
There
So
is
how
no-
do we find out?
There is no transition committee.
Oh.
There's a group. There are several members of from legal, finance, grounds. Am I missing anyone? And security that are working on the documents under the governance of the legal committee. They're the ones that are running that program. Deb Putt's the chair of that committee. So she is the one that's going through the documents. In fact, I see a number of people. I'm not going to single them out because I don't want to, unless they want to volunteer their names, but I see at least 3 or 4 people who are on that group who are here tonight.
But there should be
And
a
Art,
dedicated, there should be a dedicated transition committee, making sure that all of these pieces are brought together.
If I could answer her question also.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be an easy transition, no matter how much planning we do. And it's only set up to be an easy transition because OA is controlling it and we're not challenging them as to, you're going to start paying for things. They've already said, here's the documents, we don't pay for things. Let's just move things over to you and you take control. We need to stand up and say, okay, no. You've got this set in motion. But we have a new list that's never been presented to you as homeowners that sets the precedent for the next 30 years. You have to address. It's not, okay, everything's good, the finance committee, here's the budget, here's the documents from the legal committee. It's, we need change in this partnership structure and cost sharing going forward. That's going to be the challenge. That's why it's not going to be smooth, because as you said, they hold the cards and they don't have to do anything, but they do have to live with us afterwards. They do have to face us afterwards. And we can make it not difficult in a lawsuit, but we can let them know this is not what we are going to sit for. And we can hold it up. We can get the county involved. We have talked to the county about the documents, and the county has some concerns. So there's a lot of things we can do to make this a better partnership, but it's not going to be smooth. Something this complicated, the way they have control, they can charge us what they want. It's not going to happen.
Charges for what?
Assessments, they charge what they want.
You're talking about the club?
The club, that's OA.
Okay.
Isn't that OA?
Yeah, I just didn't know that
Yeah.
we were talking about the club, not
So
our
OA
assessments.
can charge what they want. I mean, just think you had a business of 1,100 customers, every month they paid you a set amount and you didn't have to care. They can do that. They can develop their number. So I'm not saying it's bad, but we don't know. We don't know their books. All we know is we get pushed down on costs. So it's not going to be smooth.
You have to come up.
Ron, you asked about the time commitment.
Is that board members, being on the board takes a lot of time, and is everybody prepared for the time commitment to be a member of the board here at the Peninsula?
Aaron, how much time do I spend working on this? It's a very busy job. Fortunately, I have the position, I am retired from the practice of law. I'm living here full time. I'm here virtually all winter, unfortunately, or fortunately. I probably go to 2 or 3 meetings a week that last from anywhere from an hour and a half to 2+ hours. I spend countless amount of time answering and responding to emails. I'm always available to my fellow homeowners who I appreciate it. I talk to them. It is a huge time commitment. I've spent it, I have it, and I'm willing to continue to do so.
Mr. Sperling.
Fully retired. I don't do any dancing anymore. So I'm certainly available. I understand the amount of time that you spend on boards, believe me, and I'm prepared to do.
Mr. Hill.
It certainly is a time-consuming position, but I don't think that it is necessarily a one-person time-consuming commitment. I believe that you have to delegate, and you have to involve other people do this. I don't think that one person can be responsible for everything that goes on, and you can accomplish so much more if you have people that you can delegate to and then keep track of them.
Mr. Markham.
I live here full time. I'm semi-retired. What I mean by that is I work from home. I go into my office in Bear, Delaware. I own an MRI there, and I have another one in Philly. I'm from 18 down to 2. So, and I have an excellent partner that tells me stay away, because all I do is get in her way. So I work from home. I don't do that much. I'm not allowed to. So I have enough time. I've been on many boards. I've been on school boards. I've been involved in things like this before, and I do know the time commitment, and I will make sure the time is there for what's needed.
can throw one more out from chat. Would it be expand the board to 7 members? Something we would consider.
Of course. I think that's a great idea to expand the board, and I think earlier is to have a larger board. 7 shares the workload and also enables those members to reach out to their community people.
Paris, I certainly think it makes a lot of sense to expand the board. Pass around the responsibilities and to get better representation from the community. I think it makes a lot of sense.
I agree. In fact, I think it's going to happen. As part of what we're doing as far as redoing the documents with the group that's been working on the bylaws. One of their recommendations that I wholeheartely support and talking about is expanding the board when we take over. Not going to happen until then, but once it does, I would anticipate a much greater number of board members from the homeowners, and I support that 100%.
Mr. Baca?
I would agree at the point of transition, we certainly will have a bigger board, homeowner dominated. Until we get there, we're at 2 to 3 years probably. Having this situation continue, I don't think is fair or balanced. So would I love for the board to be expanded 3-3 to have equal? Sure. Is OA ever going to do it? No, they've stated that publicly. You don't see any reason for it, and especially if they see the end is near and it could happen. So if I would want it, I think it'd be great. It's just not going to happen. But I agree with Merrill, at the point we take over, we will have a much bigger board.
So I have a question. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this on behalf of some of the people that are sitting in the room. I'd love to hear your vision, future vision of the peninsula. Should we be a luxury private community for homeowners, full and part-time, or should we be a rental community that focuses on 3, 5, 7-day short-term rentals? I'd love to hear everybody's input on the rental matter.
A resort community right now, that's a.
Up on 7:30, so we'll make this the last question for the evening, and then we'll do our closing.
Well, I think that we're set up and have been since the beginning for rentals, and it certainly was a benefit to the developers to have rental units in the community. Certainly a lot of people that rented in those houses later bought properties or built properties, and I think it was to the advantage of the developers. I think going forward, I think as a community, we have to look at, is it in our best interest to have rental units, short term or longer term? One of the positive reasons for rentals is that if you have a home here, but you have a large family, you want to celebrate holidays or events and that sort of thing. You can't always house everybody at your house, and to have some rentals available is a benefit. On the other hand, there's a downside to rentals. A lot of the people that rent and they come in, they don't treat the properties the same way that the homeowners do. So I think that the community has to make that decision. We have to listen to what people want and make the decision on that basis.
Merrill.
Thank you. It's a good question. I've always said that I think we have a rental problem with some of the short-term rentals here. I think it's not conducive to the way this community ought to be. Last year, Tammy Home came to me and said, we need to do something with the short-term rentals. You think we can get a policy to get rid of the 3-day rentals during season? And I worked with Tammy and others to try to get a new policy to try to create more restrictions on the rentals, which we did pass. We got through the board. I think that at some point in the future, short-term rentals are going to be not here. I think we're moving towards the longer-term rentals. People here who rent long-term take care of the property, don't create the problems we have, and I would support that. And I think that's the direction that we're heading. Having said that, we have to be very careful. Why? Because there's some legal issues involved, and we want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a position where we are basically getting sued by someone. So we have to be very careful on how we do that, change that policy. But I think that, I've said this before. I said this publicly at a board meeting not too long ago. I said that the trend is going to be short-term rentals. I've talked about this with Ocean Atlantic. They won't get rid of short-term rentals while they're in charge. But they've said that they understand that that's likely going to happen once they leave, and I think that that's sort of where we're headed.
Well, it's a big problem for Veranda. 17 of the 40 short-term rentals in this whole community are in Veranda, where it's weekly, 3-day, 5-day. And we're constantly on with Veronica. There's last weekend, one home had 25 people, 5 cars out front, drinking on the deck till 2 a.m., toys, 3 dogs tied up in the backyard. So we have a real problem. And we are trying to address it at Veranda. But that's just part of the problem, the landlords. So we are meeting with the landlords and saying, you can't do this anymore. And the second part of that is we don't have enforcement. So we have problems. We take pictures, we see 3 dogs tied up, supposed to be no dogs. Nothing happens to the landlord or the renter because there's no enforcement of that. By the time you send anything, they're gone. And then the landlord, we have a landlord that we had to call the county because the rent last week left all 5 bags of trash on the driveway. And by the second day, maggots were all over it. Took pictures of it, sent it to the county, sent it to him. He said, stop harassing him. But you know what? When I told him the county was coming out, he went over there. He lives here in Marina Bay. He went over and picked it up himself. But this is a problem. This is not something we're going to wait 2 to 3 years until the transition. We are addressing this with the landlords. We are addressing this with the renters. They're supposed to sign things. How they get 5 cars through dwelling live when they're renters, they can only have 2. All these things, we're trying to figure out why is this happening. Veronica is helping us, but it's a real problem, and we're not going to wait 3 years. And Conservancy has that issue, and so does Windswept. Those are the 3 main communities short term, and it's a problem.
Mr. Spurlock.
This was a problem in Los Angeles HOA, the rental issue. It's plus and minus, certainly people own their home, rent them, but term rentals pose a terrific stated with a lot of parties, a lot of trash, et cetera, et cetera. So what we did is and that pretty much took care of the problem.
All right. Well, folks, you've heard a lot, right? We're going to break this up for the evening. We have another half hour to mingle. And hopefully you'll make a decision and we'll know the result. What you need to say to your audience, Zoom people, hang down this way.
Hopefully tonight I impressed upon you about who I am and what I care about, which is you, the homeowners. I'm a fighter. I see things differently. I don't go with status quo. I've never worked for anybody. You can tell I wouldn't probably do well. I have always had my own business since I was very young, because I felt like, if there's a way to do it, and I'm going to work to make it work and get it done. And I will do that. You need a different breed in this transition phase, because it can't be always says this is the way it's going to be, because it's always been. That doesn't work. They should pay for security. They should pay for the gatehouse. They should pay for things. They use them. We pay for everything we use of theirs. So I hope you understand my commitment, and I hope to get your vote. Thank you.
Now,
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. Here's why I say you should vote for me. 3 reasons. First, I'm committed to the peninsula. I've been working on behalf of homeowners for the last 10+ years. I was involved even before the PCA was involved. I was very involved with a group of homeowners that were responsible for how the clubhouse being built here, for our litigation that we had over the Verizon overcharge, as well as representation to make sure that we, the homeowners, were represented in the county legal system when we had a receivership. I've been very committed to the peninsula and I've spent a lot of time. The second reason is I get things done. I'm very proud of a lot of things that have accomplished since I've been on the board, of which I have been involved in. These include our strong financial position. One of the things, and particularly a reduction in delinquent accounts. When I became on the board, we had about $150,000 in back debt in homeowners who were delinquent. I formed a small group. We tackled the problem. We came up with a friendly but persuasive method to get collections controlled and legal expenses controlled. I'm happy to report that today our delinquency is around $25,000, a huge improvement from where we were. I'm very proud of the creation of the PCA Hub. Hopefully you've all logged in and registered. That came out of a retreat that was held an idea that I had. We had a retreat here in this room with a number of people from the community to try to improve communications. And as a result of that, the idea for the hub was created and was finally implemented recently. I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of the implementation of our new security system that happened over the last couple of years, including dwelling alive. There's a lot of work by some of the people that were here. A lot of time was spent, a lot of energy. I'm very proud that we got that approved. I'm very proud of the oversight of our management and vendors and contracts. We've undergone a whole process to revamp that process. And some of the people here were involved in that, and I really appreciate that. And I was involved in that to try to ensure that we are on top of our vendors, that our contracts have the correct, appropriate terms and conditions, so that we, the homeowners, are protected in all the transactions that we do. We have a new office building. We got kicked out of the old one. I helped with a small group to negotiate the terms of the lease, for which we have the use of that space at no cost to the homeowners. I'm also proud of the many other projects that have been completed by the Technology Committee and the Nature Committee, of which I've been involved. The third and most important reason why I think you should vote for me is because I listen, not just to my friends and my neighbors and those who are the loudest, but to everyone. You can find me on the golf course, the pickleball courts, at the club, the pool, the gym. I'm out, I'm talking to people. I'll be DJing at the fire pit on Thursday night. Feel free to come talk to me. I'm accessible and I'm happy to answer all your questions. I'll tell you the way it is. You may not all like it, what I say, but I'll be honest with you and I'll fight for you. I'm doing everything I can to try to represent everyone's interest in PC for the homeowner. Those are the reasons I ask for your support. Thank you.
Well, it's been interesting tonight. There's a lot to be done through this transition over the next couple or 3 years. Where I come from is that you don't start with an adversarial position with the people you're trying to negotiate with. You have to start with some type of discussion to work together to gain confidence with the other parties. Because if you get bogged down and you have controversy and it leads to arguments and lawsuits and that sort of thing, the community doesn't benefit, nobody benefits. You've got to learn to work with people and make things happen. And sometimes it involves some compromise. And I think that that's what we're facing. I don't think that we can accomplish what we want by pointing fingers and being controversial.
I've learned in leadership coaching is how to listen. And I think I've been fairly successful in my careers, 3 careers so far. And I've learned to listen to people and I've learned to act on it. And I know how to direct. I know how to be a team player both. I think I bring some insightfulness through my experience in different HOAs and as president of HOA for about 11 years, and also a freshness. And so with those qualities, I think I would add value to this board and ask for your support.
All right, everyone, thank you so much. Oh.
A lot of good things.
Fantastic job.
Yeah, I can read a lot of what you said.